it's been a part of my life story, certainly even down to being a part of the wedding for Daisy and I some 30 years ago. I know I don't look quite like that, but guess what? It's been at least 30. So, good evening, everyone. We are so grateful that you could be with us here today on The Judge Speaks. This is Hubert Grimes coming to you from Joy 106.3 FM here in lovely Daytona Beach. And I can tell you that the day's weather is a lot lovelier than what it was the last time I came to you some 2 weeks ago. A lot has happened during this time period, and we are so grateful, pardon me, we are so grateful that everything is what it is, and we are welcoming the presence of always of Almighty God. Uh, got a lot of things that we want to cover today. I always like to give a praise report too, so I'm grateful to God that the last time I was with you, my wife was shortly thereafter, she took ill, and she spent some time in the hospital. But we are so grateful to God that she's out, she's recovering strong. She is starting to work again from home, and she'll be there through the certainly till she gets her last appointment taken care of in another week. But always a praise report that God brought her through. And of course, all of us are indebted to our Lord because He brings us through, as we say, dangers seen and unseen. And so that's a big part of what this radio station is all about. Most of you know that we have a two-pronged purpose: inspiration, pointing you to the work of the Holy Spirit in our lives, and secondly, information, talking about those things in the secular world that are important to us and those things that will be difference makers in our lives. And so today is no different. We're grateful that we have a chance to share. Got a very powerful guest that's going to be joining me here on screen in just a few minutes. But just want to do a little quick shout out and a backup. And pardon me. It would be that at the moment I said I didn't need water, that all of a sudden I got this cough trying to creep up on me. But the devil is a lie. We're going to leave it alone. Couple updates that we want to share with you. It's certainly that we are in the midst of Black History Month, and some people like to always say, why did they make the shortest month of the year Black History Month? Well, it wasn't because it was the shortest month of the year, and anybody that says that doesn't know their history. But we celebrate exactly 100 years ago that the work of Carter G. Woodson, along with Dr. Carter G. Woodson, pardon me, as well as Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune and many others who were all academicians who felt the need in order to try to change the attitude of towards Black people in this country. We were suffering some very crazy things going on during that time. Think about it. We had 1863 Emancipation Proclamation, 1876 the disputed election, or what I like to call the stolen election. They put in a president who agreed to bring the troops, federal troops, out of the South that had been helping to make sure that Black folks were treated properly under the Constitution and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Well, we know that right after that, they took the troops out, and as we might say, all hell broke loose. And we know that, of course, the Ku Klux Klan and all of those other similar organizations began to run roughshod throughout the South. Jim Crow and all of their black codes began to be something that was the norm. And of course, I hate to tell you, but lynching became something that was far too worse. The Equal Justice Initiative has documented, and I always get this number because the number is still unfolding, but they've been able to document in excess of 4,000, and some say closer to 6,000 lynchings of Black people, primarily in the South, but also in certain northern parts of the country as well. But all of that was happening and going on at the time. You had, of course, the NAACP was founded in 1904. You had other efforts at trying for us to just come up with a degree of racial independence. All of that was happening. And so you had the educators decided that, you know what, we need to document the progress, the accomplishments of Black folks in this country. And maybe we can pass that information down to the next generation. We can also show that we're not vagabonds, that we're not those who are throwaways, that we're not those who have not made a difference in this country. From the time we first came in 1619, and even up until the present time, 100 years after the founding of the Negro History Week, which was designed to come during the birthdays of Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass. That's how Negro History Week got started. And we know that in 1976, it was actually changed and expanded to Black History Month. So here we are celebrating Black history during the month of February, and it's all because of that historical background. I like to also point out the fact that I think that we should celebrate Black history every day of the week. And you know why? I say, therefore, Black History Month is the blackest month of the year, because it's when all of it comes together, all of it's concentrated, and we are still evolving. We are still making a difference. We are still following. And so I want to encourage my listeners to be able to pursue the knowledge of Black history, because it'll make a difference not only in your life, but in the lives of your children and your grandchildren. There are those who want to try to change it. There are those who want to try to eliminate it. There are those that want to try to counsel it. But it doesn't change the fact that we are a chosen people. If you want to call it 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9, a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people, called out of darkness into his marvelous light. And who but us fits that description? So I'm grateful today that we can talk about those things. A couple things on the news updates I wanted to share. I learned earlier this morning, and many of you already have heard, that Jesse Jackson, Reverend Jesse Jackson, profound leader of the Black movement at several levels, starting out with Southern Christian Leadership Conference under Dr. King. Before that, being a student at North Carolina A&T, which has now become one of the largest HBCUs in the country. And of course, he was actively involved with SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Commission, then ultimately with Dr. King at SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And of course, after the death of Dr. King, when he was there in Memphis at the time of the assassination of Dr. King, he actually broke with the rest of the people from SCLC and created Operation Breadbasket under PUSH, People United to Save Humanity, and then later established a broader vision and created the Rainbow Coalition. He ran for office. As president in 1984, and people thought he was crazy for doing so, but he showed that Black folks can do anything they set their minds to. And then, of course, again in 1988, I like to put a pause in 1988 because that's the same year that I ran for county judge here in Volusia County. And I believe that because of the turnout that Reverend Jackson helped to bring about, that he, of course, it benefited me as well running for office. And unfortunately, this morning we lost Reverend Jackson. He had been battling Parkinson's for a number of years, all the way back to 2017, and it had taken a very disastrous toll upon his physical abilities. And so he passed away this morning in the presence of his family. And so our hearts go out to him. I have a very dear friend and law school classmate who worked with Dr. Jackson, both at the Rainbow Push, and then she, of course, was from his hometown. Her dad had been a mentor to Dr. Jackson. And so also I want to send a shout out to my dear friend, Janice Mathis, there in D.C. She, of course, now she's in Atlanta, but she was served as the national president of the National Council of Negro Women, subsequently general counsel, and now she's back in Atlanta again, working at Clark, doing some work again to try to help improve the lives of our people. So may he rest in peace. He had a phenomenal impact, historic impact, and yes, as I said earlier, personal impact. And though there was some that didn't like Dr. Reverend Jackson, and of course he, like all the rest of us, had his own difficulties, had his own faults. But you know what? He did the best he can with what he had. And I think that's what God requires of all of us. And if more of us would step up and do use the skills, gifts, and talents that God has blessed us with, I truly believe we can help change this nation for the better. So I challenge you, those of you that are out there that want to be critics, do something. I always heard that if you You want to criticize me, do twice what I've already done once. That's when you get the right to criticize. A couple things for those of you that are, we have, I like to call it my book learning group out there. In the past month, I've been fortunate to read. I'm working on the third book now, but I have finished a book called, if you have an interest in it, A Sky Full of Elephants. A Sky Full of Elephants by Sibo Campbell. Fictional work, very good, very well written, very challenging to you as well. Also, I'm currently reading Burn Down Master's House by Clay Kane. For those of you on Facebook, I hold up a copy of the book here that you'll be able to see. And of course, let's see if I can get that right up here high enough for you to see it. But that's an interesting one I'm reading currently. And I'm also reading and rereading The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. So I try to help encourage you to read and study and grow, because that's what's going to make a difference for ourselves and our kids. Also, I'll point out that there's another book that I read over the weekend that I used in a couple messages because it fired up something within me, actually a remembrance within me, and that was God's Trombones by attorney James Weldon Johnson. Many people don't know that James Weldon Johnson was a lawyer, but he was one of the first lawyers in the state of Florida back in 1897. We know he also wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing, which has now become the Black National Anthem. And so it was just a great opportunity to go back and look at some of his writings, especially during this time of Black History Month. And also one that jumped out at me when I looked at his book of poetry was something I learned when I was in junior high school. I know we don't have that anymore. We have middle school. But in junior high school, I had to learn the creation. And God stepped out on space and looked around and said, I'm lonely. I'll make me a world. And as far as the eyes of God could see, blackness covered everything, blacker than 100 mil down in the cypress swamp, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and for those of you that come down to my office, I actually have a huge, I guess it's probably 40 by 50 portrait of James Weldon Johnson commemorating his work. He was honored by the Florida Bar back in 2022, and I was able to also get a duplicate of that big painting, and we've turned it into a huge portrait that we have on display there in the lobby of our office. And we do that in order to try to create a conversation, particularly with the young people who come to the office, so that they will know that the inspiration and where it came from. Recently, they had his Lift Every Voice and Sing was sung, of course, at halftime of the Super Bowl. There are those MAGA critics that don't understand it, don't know the importance of it, and they want to try to criticize it, but they don't understand it. It wasn't about them anyway. And so shout out to Coco Jones, who did a phenomenal job singing. She also did a throwback to the days of Whitney Houston's great singing of that same song. And so we're just grateful that we're still pushing. And folks, even though there's a lot of things happening and some of these things seem to be targeted towards black people, this purported attorney general we got here in Florida, that young man doesn't, in my opinion, he is out of control. He has recently, on Dr. King's birthday, sent out a memo that they were no longer, the Attorney General of the state of Florida is no longer going to enforce laws which were, in his mind, violated the case out of the U.S. Supreme Court that shut down Harvard and University of North Carolina's affirmative action programs. But he said that those were any laws promoting diversity, equity, inclusion. He no longer was going to support those laws nor enforce those laws. And I always say, what gives him the right to think that he gets the right to choose what laws he's going to enforce and those not? That means it's a violation of his oath, because the oath of office that he took says that he will support, protect, and defend the Constitution and government of the United States and the state of Florida. And he apparently is choosing not to. So maybe it's time for somebody to read him. I'd love to have a conversation with him and show him that he's not all that he thinks he is, and all he's doing is trying to set himself up for re-election to the position that he was appointed to, not elected to, but he was appointed to by Governor DeSantis. So that's my riff for today. I hope that I've shared something that inspires you, informs you, motivates you, and gets you going. So I'm going to bring in, at this particular time, another layer, another level of knowledge and information, someone that I have grown to love. And I told her husband that too, just a couple weeks ago, because she is such a wonderful, wonderful person. She's a great individual, a great scholar. She's a professor. She is a businesswoman. She is phenomenal in her youth. She is a great mama, a great wife. She is not other than Dr. Danielle Wilson. Come on over and join us here today. We're glad to have you. And I am so glad that you could take time out of your schedule to be with us. Man, let me tell you, tapping into this brain power here, oh my God. We have had several conversations over the years, and in fact, she was featured on my evening show twice. I think she's the first one that actually I interviewed twice, but it's because of their knowledge. And every time I'm with Dr. Wilson, she always has, oh my gosh, we get started, and it's like, oh my God, it leads one thing leads to another in the conversation. And so I'm just glad she could come. And we're going to talk about two particular topic areas that I hope will be a blessing to those of you in my listening audience. Call up a friend. If you'd like to call in and ask us any questions, certainly you can do so at 386-868-3411, 386-868-3411. For those of you on Facebook, I'm going to turn that number around so you'll be able to see it. And so if you'd like to give us a call, you certainly are welcome to do so. I like to call her Dr. Danielle.
Yes.
Okay. I give her props, but also because of the personal relationship, I like to call her Dr. Danielle. And she, of course, is a professor at Bethune-Cookman. I was blessed during my tenure as acting as interim president. That's when I first got to know her, and the work that she was doing then with the students. And of course, now she's, oh my God, she's broadened her interest tremendously while still teaching at the school. Talk about your background, because I'm sure there's some young person out there listening that needs to know, how do you become a professor? How do you do the work that you've done and brought you to this place in life?
Okay, not a problem. This is good? You can
good.
all hear me? Okay, perfect. So,
We got Brother Terrence over there on the board, so he'll make sure we can be heard loud and clear.
okay, awesome, awesome. Well, at first I have to, acknowledge, God, thank him for everything, because I am here because of God. And then second, I would love to shout out my husband, Michael Howard. And so now I'm Dr. Wilson-Howard. I did have to hyphenate it.
And I always get it flipped.
Yes,
I don't know why.
a lot of people do.
Yep.
But I hyphenated my name because I'm published. So that was one of the
right.
key things, so that I can always have my publications from, before I was married. And so how do you get started? I have a very unique background where I am in a field called translational science.
Okay.
And translational science looks at science, if you take, for instance, research, from the benchtop to the sidewalk.
Okay.
So what that means is, if you look at like drug development or a certain disease, they all start at the cellular level.
Okay.
And they go from the cellular level, where you're doing research and experiments in the lab, to, let's say, an animal model, from an animal model to a clinical trial, with participants in different phases of clinical trials, to, let's say, a drug being adopted by the FDA, or understanding disease at a community level and how that disease is affecting. So you're looking at public health, and you're looking at clinical research. And so translational science takes you from basic science through clinical research to public health to the overall community. And
did you know that that's what it would do when you first chose?
No,
that
I did
area?
not at all. So my PhD is in biochemistry.
Okay.
And when I obtained my PhD in biochemistry from the University of Florida, go Gators, always have to shout that out. Matter of fact, before my PhD, I did my undergraduate at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, established in 1854. We still claiming the first.
Yes.
We don't care what Cheney says, but Lincoln University is the first HBCU. And that's where I did my undergraduate in chemistry, then went on to obtain my master's and my PhD in biochemistry at the University of Florida. And I always tell this to students. It was during my PhD process that I realized I did not want to work in the lab.
Okay.
I did not. I
learned that my first semester my freshman year.
I thought I loved it, but I was first generation.
Okay.
So as an undergraduate, I participated in a number of internships and then graduate programs, or programs geared towards getting me into the PhD process. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. I can do the work in a lab. It's interesting. But it was in graduate school when I was obtaining my PhD that I was like, hold on. And I should have known this. But once again, first generation, you really don't think about certain things. I was like, am I signing up to do this for the rest of my life?
Mm.
Just work in the lab? I can do the work. I understand it.
Okay.
I see the need for it. But my personality, I wanted to interact with people more.
Okay.
And so I had to make that transition. I was too far in the PhD process to be like, okay, I'm going to give up and leave this. No.
Mm-hmm.
So I completed it. But at that time, I began to say, okay, since I love interacting with people, I love mentoring, how can I transition into doing more of those things while I'm finishing my PhD?
Okay.
So I started to work for the graduate school at the University of Florida with a program that helped mentor students. And then once I completed my PhD, I worked at Moffitt Cancer Center, and that opened my eyes to cancer research. And I was also training undergraduate students as a coordinator for a project that was called Link ET, Leaders in New Knowledge Emerging Technologies.
Okay.
So we would train the student in proteomics, which is protein science in the lab, but then we were also training them on how to engage in the community, how to do public health, how to do health education. And so at that point is where I began to merge the two fields and look at, okay, how can we train students to be health educators in the community, because they're at this sweet spot, especially college students,
Right.
where they're understanding the science, but they still can speak it in a manner where the general public gets it.
Okay.
So college students, they serve as a perfect vehicle to translate complex diseases into an easy, understandable manner, right? That brings that health literacy level down where parents, other children feel ease when opening up and asking them questions. And so that's where I began to develop, which I did not know I was doing at that time, the initiative that we have now, which is called WinHP. We Invest in Your Needs Health Projects.
WinHP.
We invest in your needs health projects.
Okay.
And so this is an initiative at Bethune-Cookman where we train, we hire students, biology, chemistry, communications, computer science, education. We hire a vast amount of students. We teach them concepts within public health, science education, health communications, and we allow them to develop projects and health campaigns that are focused on different diseases to help people get access to care.
During COVID,
Yes.
you were very active with your team of interns and support personnel working to try to be difference makers here and throughout the black community in particular, because you were, in fact, not a lot of folks were addressing those issues with that type of focus.
Yes.
What was that experience like?
Well, that is where WinHP started. So
Okay.
before WinHP, we had the Pandemic Win Initiative. And the Pandemic Win Initiative was just that program. Not only did we focus on black communities, our goal was to get it out to everyone because COVID did not target any race
It didn't care,
or
did it?
anybody.
Didn't
And
care.
so what I did is I took the methods that I learned from cancer research, because one of the key things, if you think about when COVID happened, there was no American COVID Society or National COVID Society. We have the American Cancer Society, we have the World Cancer Organization, where we have developed certain methods of developing health campaigns, communication campaigns, infographics, education associated with cancer. So I borrowed from that field and then developed it in COVID-19 and then trained the students, took some of their ideas because we had to understand what younger people were thinking about, especially being in a college town. We have Emory-Riddle, we have Bethune-Cookman, you have Daytona State, you have Stetson. And all of the universities as well as the K through 12 shut down. So the amount of isolation that people were facing, it was our goal through the through the Pandemic Win Initiative to let people know that you're not alone with your thoughts and what you're hearing, that it is okay if you want to get vaccinated. It is okay if you don't want to get vaccinated. But our goal is to get you the information that you need to make an informed decision. And then you make that decision for yourself and your families. And so, yes, our team, we were out at, health fairs, carnivals. We know that Florida, our economy is based off of tourism. So we were highlighting businesses, showing others through Google reviews that you could come to Florida. We practiced social distancing, all of those things. I mean, to this date, I think we might have reviewed 90 something different places, in which if you go to Google review and look up pandemic when, we have over 16 million views on all of our imagery, our reviews that we wrote, all of those different things.
Wow.
So it was a novel approach to just engage in the community. And so when, once we had the vaccination, multiple vaccinations, once we had the monoclonal antibody sites that they were able to develop and get people those drugs, and, the world got a control on COVID-19, we said, can we take this same approach and apply it to other diseases?
Okay.
And that's how we birthed WinHP. And I would love to get some of the students here to talk about the initiative and their experience.
Well, we got a open calendar.
Okay.
So we'll work on that. Now,
So, yes.
in terms of, all right, so after the COVID, the work there was done, like you said, that was a springboard to the next round
Yes.
of what you're doing. And one thing about you is that you're not relying on, or resting, should I say, on the rearview mirror.
No.
You're constantly pushing forward. You're constantly raising other young people up. We've heard that she's a tough taskmaster in class, but you'll love her. You'll love what she's doing because she's pulling the best out of our students.
Yes.
So, what are you some of the things that you're working on now? And I know you and I had started talking about some of the clinical trials.
Yes.
And I'm assuming if we could make that connection, that a lot of the, I guess we could say, the challenges result in people pursuing trials, clinical trials, to address medication and things of that nature. So talk to us about some of the clinical trial work that you've done.
Yes. So, I've been at Bethune-Cookman for about 10 years now. Started
Doesn't seem
in,
like it's been
I
that long.
know,
Wow.
2015. I also met my husband around that year.
All right, so that was a good
yes,
match.
2015 was a good year.
All right.
Shout out to Dr. Thompson for bringing me down here. He's the one who
Okay.
recruited me into the College of Science, Engineering, and Mathematics. But I want to say my second year here, second or third year, since I'm a graduate of the University of Florida, when I moved back to Florida, of course, I'm going to reach out. And I did that, and I met this one faculty member in particular. Her name is Dr. Janice Krieger.
Okay.
Dr. Janice Krieger is a health communication scientist. And so, being that I had this translational interest, I understood the importance of communicating what we knew at the basic science level
Okay.
to people so that they can make those, once again, informed decisions. I met her, we talked, and we stayed connected. And then she obtained an R01 grant from the National Institute of Health,
Okay.
which would employ virtual humans or virtual clinical assistants and helping to decrease colorectal cancer by increasing colorectal cancer screening.
Okay.
So if you remember, during COVID, we were all isolated, right? And so during that time, cancer screenings decreased across the board.
Okay.
So when 2023 hit, a lot of people were diagnosed with cancers because they were not going to, get screening. We were trying to figure out how we were going to live. It wasn't at the forefront of individuals' mind. But what she did and what we're doing through the research is we've created this virtual assistant, and there are multiple virtual assistants, and they're called ALITs. And ALITs can be a male, female, black, white, Hispanic, young, old. You can select a character, and they would explain colorectal cancer screening to you over the phone, and then we would send out a Cologuard. Not a Cologuard, I'm sorry. We would send out a fit kit, and then you can do the screening at home and then take it to your doctor's office. Once again, that expansion will let's not just stop at colorectal cancer screening. How do we now educate people on all types of clinical trials so that they can then see if there's a clinical trial in their area that they may, be a good fit for, or a loved one? Because what we find with some diseases, the individual who is facing it, they really can't deal with it, but it's that caregiver that can actually find that information and encourage that individual to seek out treatment. And so now what we've done is we've expanded ALITs to not only just do colorectal cancer, decrease that through promoting prevention, but we now have ALITs educating people on clinical trials. And using AI, we've been able to make those clinical trials easy to understand. Because sometimes when you go to a site, the words are way too large. Some people feel like they can't trust them because of our historical perspective, of course. And it's confusing. So our goal is to make that whole process easy You can engage with ALEKS. You can ask it questions via text. It will give you a verbal response. If you say, for instance, I am interested in, I have a loved one who is suffering from, let's say, some type of eye disease. You put that in, and then ALEKS can find like clinical trials within 30 to 50-mile radius, and then give you the information, the contact information for that research coordinator, who will then explain that trial and see if your loved one is a good fit for it.
So let's see. So for the layperson that's out there,
Mm-hmm.
they start with, let's say, Google.
They start with Google,
And
yes.
Google, and they're putting the Google information in, is asking for, and what was the phrase you used, ALEKS?
Oh, so
But
ALEKS.
I want to make the connection from how do they get from, just hearing our conversation
Mm-hmm.
to, let's say, they want to follow it up. How do they start from just scratch, getting to the next level, ultimately getting to the conversation that you're referring to?
Okay, well, Janice has left the University of Florida and is now at Mayo Clinic.
Okay.
And through her transition to Mayo Clinic, ALEKS has grown. So when we first started, it was a clinical trial itself. It was research. Can
Okay.
ALEKS do this? Can we, increase colorectal cancer screening by putting this little virtual human out so people can access it? And once we did the research, the answer was yes. And so we applied for additional funding. And now, if you want to access ALEKS, you would go to Mayo Clinic's website.
Okay.
You would type in ALEKS, ALEX, and you can also type in Janice Krieger. She has a etch lab. But if you type in the ALEKS as well as, Krieger, I think her last name is Kringer. No, that's not it. Yes, it is. Okay.
Okay.
That it might not be there. Okay. But
But
anyways,
if
if
put
you
in
go to
ALEKS,
Mayo,
what you're saying,
if
Mayo.
you type in ALEKS, yes,
ALEKS,
it'll come up.
Okay, it'll come up.
And it's still, now that the project has expanded and includes Mayo Clinic, University of Florida Gainesville, University of Florida Jacksonville, FIU down in Fort Lauderdale area, and I want to say it's another university that's, Bethune-Cookman, because I'm representing Bethune-Cookman on it. And we have a community advisory board. We have a tech team that is looking at, how can we improve ALEKS based off of user feasibility. They will do a focus group with the quickness to engage how people receive this, and then the tech team is on it. It's a user-centered approach where they're changing it simultaneously based off of the feedback. So it's still in its research phase,
Okay.
but you can participate in this research and receive a $25 gift card
Okay.
for participating.
Just for participating.
Just for
showing
participating.
up.
Yep, and then you don't have to show up. You showing up is at home, clicking that I want to participate in this study, and you do everything through your phone.
Okay.
And so it's targeting everybody.
Now, in particular, there are a lot of us, being that it is Black History Month, and a lot of us that might go back in history, because I can already hear it out there. Oh, with these clinical trials, we got to watch out for that, because y'all remember what happened with Tuskegee.
Yes.
With Tuskegee's, in the words of Gil Scott Heron, Tuskegee 626. But Tuskegee incident and the research that was done there back in the 1940s and 50s, that was, we all know that was wrong.
Yes.
But unfortunately, I guess if there was a benefit out of the illegality that took place, it of course helped to set up the better training for sexually transmitted diseases as related to Black folks. But a lot of Black people are therefore scared. They think every potential clinical trial is a Tuskegee experiment upon people. And help us to understand the contrary, that it's not, and how important it is for we as a people to engage in these clinical trials when the opportunity presents.
Yes. Okay. And I love this topic. This topic is near and dear to my heart. One, because I have a nephew who, at the age of 5, was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and he's one of the reasons why I do what I do. Not only did he have a brain tumor located on his brainstem, there was a cyst growing on top of the brain tumor, and what saved his life was a clinical trial. That's and then now that is standard care.
Okay.
And so that's one of the key things. And I understand the history that we've gone through as a people, especially as it comes to, when it comes to medical research. But one of the key things is we have a history period in this nation. There were stores that we could not go into.
Sure.
But we go into those stores now.
Okay.
There were things that we did where we forgave other people but we want to hold on to this one piece and not forgive them and not realize that by doing that, you're blocking the blessing of making sure that the medicine that we take and that your children's children will take will actually address our needs.
Okay.
So we have to be involved in these clinical trials, women, minorities, because what you don't want to happen is, let's say for instance you are diagnosed with some disease. There wasn't any minority participation in the clinical trial in the development of that drug. So now you're paying money that you may not have, because we know as you get older the medications become more expensive, for a drug that does not work for you. You see what I'm saying? So it's like right now the benefit of participating in clinical trials is multifold. One, you're going to get access to the next type of treatment, the best drug. Two, the companies usually pay for this treatment. You're not going to have to come out of pocket for it. Three, if you have any adverse effects, so any side effects that are alarming, they will take you off of that and then give you the gold standard drug.
Okay.
Once again, for free.
Okay.
Most of the time they are paying for these things because they want to see how their drug works in comparison to whatever's already out on the market. Or they may be trying to improve the drug that's already out on the market.
Well, if somebody wants to, let's say, sign up and be a participant in a clinical study, but yet may not necessarily know how to get that information, you just told us, of course, that you can go through the program there that the ALEX program,
Mayo.
and they can let you know if there's anything going on in your area on a particular subject matter. But then, what's the walk us through what that? Okay, assuming I've got that information now, what would
is
I
it
do
like?
next?
Okay.
Walk us through.
So that's ALEX. Another way, we talked about Google, right? You can Google, let's say, clinical trials and whatever issue that you may be having. You may be having, Lord Jesus, that
That's
Yvonne
okay.
is creeped out just then.
That's all
But,
right. We understand. You got to reach to our people.
Yes, and so whatever issue, you'll put in clinical trials. I'm gonna just use cancer as an example, or you can also, let's say, weight loss. That's another one. You can add that to Google and put a certain mile within a 50-mile radius.
Okay.
And you're going to have clinical trials pop up that are associated with universities, hospitals, but then also some smaller clinics. And one in particular that we have here in Daytona Beach is Progressive Medical Research.
Yes.
Progressive Medical Research is an amazing organization. They not only run clinical trials, they also provide internships for our students at Bethune-Cookman to teach them about clinical research. And their clinical research, they have samples that look at fatty liver disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, sleep apnea, all of these different diseases. So you can visit the individual sites. Once they come up, it's just a regular Google site, but now we have AI. So Gemini is going to kind of do a smart search before your Google one, and you can do a deeper dive with that and ask it for more information. But the key thing you want to do is get to the research coordinator. Do not be afraid to put your contact information and your name, because you want the individual to call you and begin to have that conversation with them to see if you qualify for that research. And if you do qualify for the research, trust the research coordinator. Keep in mind right now, they know the history of Tuskegee. Tuskegee was not the only incident, and it was not solely with African Americans. When you do look at the history of science, it is wrong across the board on how they made some of the discovery, but the discoveries were not in vain, because we have medicine today that will treat diseases that they were, not able to treat in the past.
Well, an example is the Henrietta Lacks.
Yes, Henrietta
situation.
Lacks.
I mean, my God, the cancer development or the treatments for cancer literally can be traced back to that black woman.
That
and her
resilient
cells.
black woman and her
Resilient,
cells.
no doubt.
What? When I tell you all that story, if you have not read it, of Henrietta Lacks, is amazing. And I think our generation relates more to the Henrietta Lacks, and I think the generation above us is the Tuskegee experiments. But the key thing about the Henrietta Lacks story that was so critical was that they were not able to grow cells out of the human bodies until they had hers. The doctor that that was treating her, and it was like, well, let's look at these cells, he died poor. He did not die rich.
Wow.
He did not at all. He died poor. But because they were trying to grow the cells outside of the human body and were not able to do it, every scientist at that time, across whatever patient they were engaging with cancer, they were trying to grow their cells and harvesting them.
Okay.
Henrietta's that HeLa cell just hooked on, and it's amazing once again the amount of discoveries that we have in science because of her cells. The vaccinations that we have. And her family eventually did receive the compensation that they needed. It was just sad that when, once again, remember, you have to also think basic scientists are not taught how to communicate.
Okay.
They are not. Basic scientists have a particular brain. And when I say basic scientists, I'm talking about your biologists, your cell biologists, your chemists. Their brain works really well in isolation in the lab, and they are great at solving problems. And we need them to be that way. They do not always communicate with everyone well.
Okay,
Some of them are trained to, like, this is how you need to talk to people now. And it's important that that takes place so that they don't do what they did in the case of Henrietta Lacks, where the scientist was like, well, we need to understand more about her genetic makeup. Let's go to her children and talk to them. And they went and it was like, well, we were able to clone your mother's cells, and we would like to take your cells and do the same thing.
And that's when things got a little bit
Oh
interesting.
my God. Yes, they did. Yes, they
You did what with my mama's cells?
Exactly. And so now you have a family thinking like, okay, is my grandmother still living? Is my mother living somewhere as a clone? Because they did not explain the process of cloning within the lab,
Right.
where we're just talking about the cells, not that overall person. They didn't communicate that. So it became very, very interesting, to say the least. That's the word we're going to use.
And is it true that many of her cells are still living today?
Yes.
Have I heard? Okay, this is what's so amazing.
They were able to clone it, and I think I forgot the author of the book that wrote the Henrietta Lacks story. I mean, amazing story. I think Oprah Winfrey did a movie based off of it, but the book itself, I remember listening to the audiobook when I lived in Baltimore. And I mean, I was going somewhere, and I was like, I'm just gonna have to be late because I have to finish this book, and I just drove around crying listening to the ending of it. But yes, I think they said you could, like, the amount of times that they've cloned her cells, you can wrap it around the Earth, the planet Earth.
Wow.
Yeah. Because once again, the cells are just that powerful.
And what's so appropriate that we're talking about this during Black History Month, because indeed she is one of the thousands, the tens of thousands, the hundreds of thousands of Black folks that have, as a result of their life, they have impacted this country and have been change makers, sometimes with just being who they are.
That's it. That's it, because she didn't know she was going to do that. But it was like her experience. I think it was, she was pregnant at the same time she had cancer, at the same time she had like HPV, at the same time, but just that resilience.
Yes.
She just kept on going.
Yes.
She worked in the field. She was strong. And she just kept on going. And, when she did finally stop and acknowledge the pain and sit down and go to the hospital, it was a lot for her. Once again, if you haven't read her story, look at the story of Henrietta Lacks. But because they did do what they do, and I believe the doctor did not get consent. That was the key thing. He did not get consent to take the sample, but they were taking blood anyway. And what they did is they then looked at, her cells and saw that, oh, these cells are uniquely growing. Let's send this to another lab and see if they see the same thing that we see. And then when they shipped it, the cells kind of took over everything that was in that container, and then they knew they had something special. But I believe the National Institute of Health, and they have tried to right the wrong that they did with her family, without getting her consent for her cells.
Wow.
So, but I know, like, nowadays, the restrictions around research as it relates to clinical trials or clinical research, the trust has to be built, not only with us, but then also with the research coordinators and with the organizations themselves. So if you look at certain organizations that do clinical research, like the UF of the world, the Mayo Clinics, the smaller ones, Progressive Medical Research, they have to have a relationship with the community. You know what I mean? They have to be involved. We will engage with those that we trust. And so that trust factor has to be there. And they have to break it down so that we understand not only why we're doing it, but the outcomes. And one of the key things that, I like to share with individuals is that if you participate in a clinical trial, you are now making medicine better for your children and your children's children. Who does not want to do that? Your years, you've spent them, you've done your due diligence, you are here. Most people are like, oh, I don't want to be an experiment. I'm not saying you experiment, but think about the next generation. Do you want them to take the medicine that you're taking now? Do you want them to suffer the way that you're suffering now? Or do you want to have a chance to make it better for them?
Amen.
Because that's what our counterparts are doing when they participate in these clinical trials. So the medicine will be designed for them. We already know that genetically we're made up. We have the same genetics, but they're different. They're a little bit different. We have the same, everyone has DNA, everyone has RNA, but there's certain proteins that are expressed more within certain populations.
Right.
There's environmental factors that make us different.
Right.
And those differences are key when you're looking at medications to address certain diseases. Look at Henrietta Lacks once again. They were not able to duplicate or grow cells out the human body until she stepped on the scene. So how much more could we advance science, but also be part of it and be known to take our responsibility, pieces of it, and take, medications to those next level.
Amen.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here just marveling at the idea, because what would that next generation look like? And then you mentioned earlier, and we had this topic, but we're going to probably bring you back to going deeper into that one.
Okay.
But you mentioned earlier AI, artificial intelligence. And as I'm sitting here and I'm reflecting on the fact that a lot of the work that's being done in these particular trials are now being picked up by artificial intelligence. And what is the impact of think about it, folks. This is Google on steroids. It's
everything on steroids.
It's an information capability of putting those things, not only being able to access information, but then coalescing that information, bringing it together to solve a particular problem.
Yes.
And give me some reflections on that, just as and I know that this is something that you and I we got deep on this topic once before about what does AI mean for the future, and how we shouldn't be afraid of it.
No.
We got to learn it and understand it so that we can basically drive that thing as opposed to letting it drive us.
Keith, you just said it right there. Drive it instead of letting it drive us. You already see they're making automated cars.
Yes.
So they are trying to get it to the point. And then what we do not want is our children to just trust in those cars and never know how to drive,
Right. I'm not quite
there
yet.
No, me neither. So I'm understanding, I think having been in a generation where we have computers and when we did not have computers, understanding the importance of those things. When I think about AI, it reminds me of when at one point I was like, the internet is so watered down. What's going to be that next big thing? AI is that.
Yes.
And it's here. And it's moving so fast that the guardrails haven't been set up. And they're trying to figure out, do the government set up the guardrails or do the AI companies set them up? And the way that it's being used in medicine, I think I read something on the Rundown. So if you want to learn anything about AI, there is a new newsletter called Rundown AI. Comes out every single day. It's amazing. It'll tell you kind of like the latest news in AI, but it'll also give you an idea of the different new AI tools that you can use for different purposes, whether it be professional or personal. But recently, I want to say that in the Rundown yesterday, there were 3 sets of physicists from Cambridge, Princeton, and I want to say Harvard that used ChatGPT 5.2 to solve a physics problem, and it took Chat 12 hours.
Wow.
So if we know AI moves fast.
Right.
So if it took Chat 12 hours, how long do you think it would take humans to figure out or solve that problem?
That was a interesting story. Now going back to 60 Minutes several months ago, where about these 2 young sisters out of New Orleans, both were high school seniors, and they've solved
Pythagorean theorem.
Pythagorean theorem.
Yes.
Something that I can barely even say the word, but they solved a problem that had stumped mathematicians and scientists for like they said like almost 2,000 years, I
Yeah.
believe, and they solved it like, well, no big deal.
Yeah, using AI. And I think
Use
that's the key thing is like depending AI is powerful when you have an expert using a tool.
okay.
If you try to do what a lot of college students do, is like, oh, I'm gonna use AI to do my work. Well, AI knows the work, but you don't.
Mm.
So when you graduate, you're not going to be at the top
Mm-hmm.
of the list to get the job, even though your grades may be there. You're not going to keep that job because you don't know what you're doing.
Okay.
AI knows how to do it, but
Okay.
you don't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that expertise, we need that expertise. And so even though they're saying like AI is going to take over this many jobs, it will if you don't learn how to employ it.
Okay.
But you still have to have the knowledge on the back end of whatever subject that you become an expert in, whether that's communications, science,
Even
content creation,
even the law.
even the law.
Yeah.
Even the law.
Yeah.
You have to have your expertise because AI does have a tendency to hallucinate. And if you can't catch that hallucination, aka understand when it's saying something completely wrong,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if you put in too many prompts, it may forget the prompt at the very top. But you
Mm-hmm.
think you're still having that same conversation with it, and it
Mm-hmm.
is on a whole nother level,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to remind it. So it's AI is great. It is still artificial.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key piece.
There you go.
It's still artificial. It's not human intelligence.
I've actually used several times, I must say, Chat GPT,
Mm-hmm.
some of the other ones just as a test. I took what we call a CLE, or continuing legal education course, took a
Mm-hmm.
couple of them, and that was one of the things talking about using AI as it relates to the law. But like you said, there are some people that try to use it exclusively,
Mm-hmm.
and they got in trouble with the court because AI will make up stuff.
Yes, it will.
It will make up stuff, and they made up some stuff that did not exist,
Or
and it
makes
got the
sense.
lawyer sanctioned by the judge
Wow.
because it was not even the case did not exist, but AI had created a case, and so when
And I
we
bet you
think,
it made sense too.
oh, of
It
course,
made perfect sense. It was
of
like,
course,
oh, this is good.
yeah, yeah, but which is why we have to drive it
Yes,
as opposed to allowing it to drive us,
correct.
and so as we boy, every time we get together, the time just
And is it
zips by.
oh
And but here again, the challenge for those of you that are out there in our listening audience is one, not be afraid of clinical trials
no.
if given the opportunity. If you've got some type of medical issue and you think that it's not being properly addressed, or you just want to be a faithful 2026 Henrietta Lacks. Maybe you
There you
got something
go.
special, and get involved with those. Look them up now that, and you're right. The PMR is a great program that's here. There are several other clinical
Yes.
research programs throughout the area. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's Century
Century is
uh,
another
is
one.
another one.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if you've got some issue, that's just another way to address it and possibly get medication that may address helping you. And then, of course, not only helping you, but helping your descendants as well.
Yes.
Couple
And
that with the AI
yep.
that we're talking about here, I pray we can stir you up to be able to say, I want to learn more. I want to jump on this, whatever this AI thing is, whether it's starting at the very basics, or if you and your kids. I mean, think about it. The kids are sitting around playing video games, right? How do those video games get established? How do they get produced? Somebody along the way created them, and they use artificial intelligence to help grow them and
Mm-hmm.
expand it. So why don't train and challenge our kids to create some of those games, which means they've got to understand the underpinnings of it, and it's going to certainly make a difference for them in the long run. Wow,
Agreed.
wow, wow, wow. We have only touched the surface. Because let me tell you, what Dr. Danielle and I got into, we went back and started talking about the Matrix,
Yes.
and we had a conversation that took us way beyond. So wait a minute,
Mm-hmm.
are we living in the Matrix already? Is that what's going on? Is that what these things that are doing? And of course, if we give ourselves over to the machines and to the art, you said it earlier, artificial intelligence as opposed to our natural intelligence, as opposed to our spiritual intelligence, as opposed to our emotional intelligence.
Right.
If we give all that away to the machine, then we're going to be dominated by the machine. But if we maintain who we are, and again, who God has made us to be,
Right.
we're the ones that's driving the car and not the car driving us.
And it's still a tool.
There it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool. In the age of my my granddad, my uncle, they used tools, but it was for, like, for example, we used to call it a plow,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And they used to call it, a sling. We were cutting the grass. And, they used hand tools back then. And then, of course, this generation that came along and we use mechanical tools to accomplish the same purpose. Now, they're telling us that we have the capability of being able to sit on the sidelines and hit a couple buttons, and the robots will go out and do what we used to have to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the challenge, and I want to just thank Dr. Danielle Wilson-Howard for her beautiful presentation with me today. Folks, I'm going to grab her back as soon as we can get on her schedule again. Let her bring in some of her students who are also, you can see that she is passing that knowledge on to that next generation, and who God only knows what they're going to do with it. They're going to run with it.
Yes.
I remember being on campus during the time of my tenure as interim, that I was walking along having left the cafeteria, and I kept hearing this hum behind me. So I turned around and see it was one of the students actually had a drone that he had built, and it was a very small drone, but he was walking and, of course, flying his drone, and I was thinking, now this is almost, what, 6, 7, this is almost 9 years ago, and to see what those kids have been able to do beyond that, that's why you got to check out Bethune-Cookman University, folks. That's why it's an HBCU of long standing, historic in nature, and of course, challenging you for the future.
Yes.
Dr. Danielle, again, thank you again for taking time out of your schedule. I'm going to get on your calendar again and get you here so we can talk some more details about where do we go with this AI stuff, and how do we prepare our kids, prepare our family, even prepare us old folks on how to deal with it.
Y'all have the knowledge, so definitely.
We certainly got the will, that's for sure. We don't believe in giving up.
No.
We don't believe in giving up. All right, folks. Well, this brings us to the close of another one of the Judge Speaks, and I'm grateful that we had this opportunity to come together here today. I always say that, usually at the beginning of my show, that the words of my good friend, Dr. Matt King Carter, was always, never go to bed as ignorant as you were when you got up this morning. Every day you ought to learn something new. I know for a fact you've learned something new here today. God bless you. God keep you until we come back together again here on Joy 106.3 and on Facebook Live. Have a blessed day.